woman slept with 10 rappers and threatened to expose their tapes if they did not give her any $1 million. Please like, subscribe, and share for more entertaining videos. Aria Summer stood in front of her full-length mirror, carefully applying her signature red lipstick. She studied her reflection, admiring her flawless caramel skin, long dark hair, and curves in all the right places. At 25, she was in her prime, and she knew it. But Aria wasn't content with just being beautiful. She had ambitions that went far beyond her looks. Growing up in a small town in Georgia, Aria had always dreamed of fame and fortune. She'd watched countless music videos, imagining herself as the star, surrounded by adoring fans and living a life of luxury. But as she got older, she realized that her singing voice was mediocre at best, and her dancing skills were nothing to write home about. Still, she was determined to make it big in the entertainment industry one way or another. That's when she hatched her plan. It was risky, potentially dangerous, and definitely illegal, but Aria was willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. She packed her bags, said goodbye to her disapproving parents, and headed for Atlanta, the hip-hop capital of the South. As she applied the final touches to her makeup, Aria smirked at her reflection. Tonight was the night her plan would be set in motion. She had managed to secure an invitation to an exclusive party hosted by rising rap star Lil Blaze. It had taken weeks of networking, flirting, and carefully crafted social media posts to get noticed by the right people, but it had all paid off. Aria slipped into a skin-tight red dress that left little to the imagination and stepped into her 6-inch stilettos. She grabbed her clutch, which contained not only her phone and lipstick but also a tiny, high-tech camera disguised as a pen. With one last confident glance in the mirror, she headed out the door, ready to set her plan in motion. The bass was thumping so loud that Aria could feel it in her chest as she approached the sprawling mansion. Security guards flanked the entrance, their stern faces scanning the crowd of hopeful partygoers. Aria flashed her invitation and her most dazzling smile, easily gaining entry while others were turned away. Inside, the party was in full swing. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of expensive cologne and perfume. Celebrities, influencers, and music industry bigwigs mingled, their laughter and chatter barely audible over the deafening music. Aria made her way through the crowd, turning heads as she passed. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and sipped it slowly, her eyes scanning the room for her target. It didn't take long to spot Lil Blaze, holding court in a VIP section surrounded by his entourage and a bevy of beautiful women. Taking a deep breath, Aria sauntered over to the VIP area. A burly bodyguard stepped in her path, but she simply smiled and nodded towards Lil Blaze. He invited me personally, she lied smoothly. The bodyguard looked skeptical but stepped aside when Lil Blaze caught sight of Aria and waved her over. Damn, girl, you must be lost cause heaven's missing an angel, Lil Blaze said, his eyes roaming appreciatively over Aria's figure. Aria giggled, playing the part of the starstruck groupie perfectly. I'm just where I want to be, she purred, sliding into the seat next to him. For the next few hours, Aria worked her magic. She laughed at Lil Blaze's jokes, hung on his every word, and made sure his champagne glass was never empty. As the night wore on, she could see the desire growing in his eyes. When he finally leaned in and whispered an invitation back to his private room, Aria knew her plan was working perfectly. Aria followed Lil Blaze through the winding corridors of the mansion, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was the moment she had been planning for months. As soon as they entered the lavishly decorated bedroom, Lil Blaze pulled Aria close, his hands roaming her body. She allowed herself to get lost in the moment, responding to his touch with practiced enthusiasm. As things heated up, she maneuvered them towards the bed, making sure they were in the perfect position for her hidden camera. With Lil Blaze distracted, Aria reached into her clutch and discreetly activated the camera. She then tossed the bag aside, as if in the throes of passion, ensuring it had an unobstructed view of the bed. What followed was a night of passion that would have made even the most seasoned adult film star blush. Aria made sure to put on a show, knowing that every moan, every movement was being captured on camera. She pushed Lil Blaze to his limits, encouraging him to try new things, to be more vocal, more expressive. As dawn broke, Aria lay in bed, pretending to sleep while Lil Blaze snored beside her. She waited until she was sure he was in a deep slumber before silently slipping out of bed. She retrieved her clutch, deactivated the camera, and got dressed as quietly as possible. Before leaving, she planted a soft kiss on Lil Blaze's forehead. Thanks for the memories, she whispered, a hint of genuine regret in her voice. Then she was gone, slipping out of the mansion and into the early morning light, the weight of her secret heavy in her purse. Back in her small apartment, Aria sat at her computer, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The video file from last night was uploaded and ready to go. All it would take was one click to send it out into the world, to unleash a storm that would change lives forever. She hesitated for a moment, thinking about Lil Blaze. He hadn't been a bad guy, really. Just another rapper with more money than sense, looking for a good time. For a brief second, she considered deleting the video and walking away from her plan. But then she thought about her dreams, about the life she wanted for herself. She thought about all the nights she'd spent practicing her smile in the mirror, perfecting her flirtatious laugh, learning how to make men putty in her hands. She had come too far to back out now. With a deep breath, Aria clicked send. The video was uploaded to a popular celebrity gossip site, along with a few choice stills that left no doubt as to the identities of the participants. Within minutes, the site's moderators had verified the content and published it. Aria sat back in her chair, her heart racing as she watched the view counter on the video climb rapidly. Comments began pouring in, a mix of shock, outrage, and salacious glee. Within an hour, the video had gone viral, spreading across social media platforms like wildfire. Her phone began to buzz incessantly with notifications. Aria smiled as she saw her follower count skyrocketing on Instagram and Twitter. People were speculating about her identity, dubbing her the mystery vixen who had brought down Lil Blaze. As the day wore on, news outlets picked up the story. Lil Blaze management released a statement claiming the video was a breach of privacy and threatening legal action. But the damage was done. The rapper's clean-cut image was in tatters and Aria's plan was unfolding perfectly. In the weeks that followed, Aria watched from the sidelines as the scandal unfolded. Lil Blaze's career took a nosedive. His upcoming tour was cancelled, his record label dropped him, and his fiancée left him in a very public breakup. Aria felt a twinge of guilt, but she pushed it aside. This was just the beginning, she reminded herself. She had bigger fish to fry. Over the next few months, Aria repeated her scheme with several other rappers and hip-hop artists. Each time she refined her technique, becoming bolder and more daring with her videos. She never showed her face clearly, always maintaining an air of mystery that kept the public fascinated. The music industry was in chaos. No one knew who would be the next target of the woman the media had dubbed the viral vixen. Security at parties and events was tightened, but somehow Aria always managed to slip through. Her reputation grew, and with it her follower count and bank balance. Sponsorship deals started rolling in from companies eager to capitalize on her notoriety. She was careful to never fully reveal her identity, always staying just out of reach of the public's grasp. As her fame grew, so did the risks. The FBI had opened an investigation into her activities, and several of her victims had banded together to offer a substantial reward for information leading to her identification. Aria knew she was walking a tightrope, but the thrill of it all was intoxicating. One night, as she was preparing for her biggest target yet, a multi-platinum artist known for his squeaky clean image, Aria received an anonymous text message. "I know who you are. Meet me at the abandoned warehouse on 5th and Main at midnight. Come alone where your secret goes public." Aria's heart raced as she read the message. For the first time since she'd started this dangerous game, she felt real fear. But she couldn't back down now. She had to know who had discovered her identity. The abandoned warehouse loomed before her, a dark silhouette against the night sky. Aria's heels clicked on the concrete as she approached, her hand clutching her purse tightly. Inside was a small taser, precaution she'd started carrying after her activities gained more attention. As she entered the cavernous space, her eyes struggled to adjust to the darkness. "Hello," she called out, her voice echoing off the walls. "I'm here, show yourself." A figure stepped out of the shadows, and Aria's breath caught in her throat. It was Jason, her ex-boyfriend from back home. The one who had broken her heart and set her on this path of revenge and fame-seeking. "Hello, Aria," Jason said, his voice cold. Or should I say viral vixen? Aria's mind raced. How had he found her? How much did he know? "What do you want, Jason?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "What do I want?" Jason laughed bitterly. "I want you to understand the damage you've caused, not just to these rappers, but to everyone around them, their families, their crews, their fans." Aria scoffed. "Since when do you care about any of that? You never cared about anyone but yourself." People change, Area, Jason replied. I've changed, and now I'm here to make things right. As they argued, neither of them noticed the figures silently entering the warehouse, surrounding them in the darkness. Suddenly bright lights flooded the space. Area squinted against the glare, her heart pounding as she realized they were surrounded by police officers, their weapons drawn. Area Summers, a voice boomed through a megaphone. You're under arrest for extortion, invasion of privacy, and distribution of revenge porn. Put your hands where we can see them. Panic seized Area as the reality of her situation sank in. This was it, her schemes, her dreams of fame and fortune were all crashing down around her. As the officers approached with handcuffs, she looked at Jason, betrayal and anger burning in her eyes. You set me up, she hissed. Jason's expression was a mix of regret and determination. I had to Area. This had to stop. As the officers led her away, Area's mind was already working, plotting her next move. This wasn't the end, she told herself. It was just another obstacle to overcome. The courtroom was packed as Area Summers, the infamous viral vixen, stood trial. The media frenzy surrounding the case was unprecedented, with news outlets from around the world clamoring for any tidbit of information they could get. Area sat at the defendant's table, her face a mask of cool indifference. She had traded her revealing outfits for a conservative suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her lawyer, a high-priced attorney known for defending celebrities, leaned over to whisper something in her ear. The prosecution presented a damning case. They had recovered all of Area's videos from her cloud storage, along with detailed records of her planning and the profits she had made from her scheme. One by one, her victims took the stand, describing the humiliation and damage to their careers that her actions had caused. Area's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim herself, a young woman led astray by the toxic culture of fame and social media. But as the evidence mounted, it became clear that Area had been the mastermind behind it all. The trial lasted for weeks, captivating the public's attention. Social media was ablaze with debates about consent, privacy, and the dark side of celebrity culture. Area's followers were split, some abandoning her while others doubled down on their support, claiming she was being persecuted for exposing the hypocrisy of the music industry. As the trial neared its end, Area finally took the stand. The courtroom fell silent as she began to speak. I know what I did was wrong, she said, her voice steady. But I also know that I'm not the only one at fault here. Her words resonated with some, but the judge was unmoved. In the end, Area was found guilty on all counts. The sentence was harsh, 15 years in prison, plus hefty fines and restitution to her victims. As she was led out of the courtroom, Area caught sight of Jason in the gallery. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and in that instant she felt a complex mix of emotions: anger, regret, and something else she couldn't quite name. Life in prison was a stark contrast to the glamorous world Area had been chasing. Gone were the designer clothes and VIP parties, replaced by a drab uniform and strict routines. But even here, Area found ways to adapt and survive. She quickly learned the unwritten rules of prison life, forming alliances and avoiding enemies. Her notoriety followed her, with some inmates admiring her audacity while others despised her for her crimes. Area threw herself into prison programs, earning her GED and taking college courses. She joined support groups and began to confront the deep-seated issues that had driven her to her destructive behavior. As the months turned into years, Area found herself changing. The anger and bitterness that had fueled her actions began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of remorse and a desire to make amends. 3 years into her sentence, Area received an unexpected visitor. It was Darius, one of the rappers she had exposed. She braced herself for his anger, but instead found him calm and reflective. I didn't come here to yell at you, Darius said. I came to thank you. Area was stunned. Thank me for what? Darius sighed. What you did. It forced me to take a hard look at myself, at the way I was living my life. It wasn't right, the way I treated women, the example I was setting. Losing everything, it woke me up. I've been clean for 2 years now, rebuilding my life, trying to be a better man. As Darius spoke, Area felt something shift inside her. For the first time, she truly understood the impact of her actions, not just the harm, but the potential for change. With time and introspection, Area began to see a new path forward. She started working with the prison's restorative justice program, sharing her story with at-risk youth and warning them about the dangers of seeking fame at any cost. Her efforts caught the attention of a documentary filmmaker who wanted to tell her story. After much consideration, Arya agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to take responsibility for her actions and perhaps prevent others from making the same mistakes. The documentary, titled Expose: The Rise and Fall of the Viral Vixen, became a sensation. It sparked important conversations about privacy, consent, and the dark side of internet fame. Arya's candid interviews, in which she expressed deep remorse and a commitment to change, resonated with many viewers. As her release date approached, Arya worked tirelessly on her rehabilitation. She completed several counseling programs, earned a bachelor's degree in sociology through correspondence courses, and even started mentoring younger inmates. Her transformation was remarkable, catching the attention of prison officials and advocacy groups alike. 6 months before her scheduled release, Arya received news that would change everything. Due to her exemplary behavior and commitment to rehabilitation, she was being considered for early release. The parole board hearing was intense, with Arya facing tough questions about her past actions and future plans. "I can't undo what I've done," Arya told the board, her voice steady. "But I can dedicate my life to making amends and helping others avoid the path I took. I want to use my experience to make a positive difference in the world." To her surprise and relief, the board granted her early release, with strict conditions including community service and ongoing counseling. Stepping out of prison after 7 years was overwhelming for Arya. The world had changed, and so had she. Her first stop was a halfway house, where she would begin the challenging process of reintegrating into society. Arya's notoriety made finding work difficult, but she was determined to rebuild her life. She started by volunteering at a women's shelter, sharing her story and helping others who had faced exploitation in the entertainment industry. Her work caught the attention of a nonprofit organization focused on internet safety and digital ethics. They offered Arya a position as a speaker and educator, traveling to schools and community centers to warn young people about the dangers of seeking fame through exploitation. As Arya settled into her new life, she received an unexpected message from Jason, her ex-boyfriend who had turned her in. He wanted to meet and talk. After much hesitation, Arya agreed. Their reunion was tense at first, filled with unspoken emotions and painful memories. But as they talked, Arya found herself grateful for Jason's intervention years ago. "You saved me from myself," she admitted. "If you hadn't stopped me, I don't know how far I would have gone." Jason nodded, his expression softening. "I hated doing it, but I knew it was the only way to help you. I'm glad to see you've turned your life around." As they parted ways, Arya felt a sense of closure. She had confronted her past and was ready to fully embrace her future. 2 years after her release, Arya's work in digital ethics and online safety had gained significant recognition. She was invited to speak at a major tech conference, addressing industry leaders about the importance of responsible content creation and the potential consequences of viral fame. As she took the stage, Arya felt a mix of nervousness and determination. The audience included some of the very people who had profited from the culture she once exploited. It was time to challenge them directly. "We live in a world where attention is currency," Arya began, her voice strong. "Where likes and views can translate into real-world power and wealth. I know this because I was once consumed by it, willing to do anything for that rush of viral fame." She went on to detail her journey, from her misguided scheme to her time in prison and subsequent transformation. The audience was captivated, many shifting uncomfortably in their seats as Arya laid bare the darker aspects of internet culture. "But the responsibility doesn't just lie with individuals," Arya continued, her gaze sweeping across the room. "It lies with all of us, especially those who create and control these platforms. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of world are we creating? What values are we promoting?" Her speech ended with a call to action, challenging the tech industry to prioritize ethics and user well-being over engagement at any cost. The response was overwhelming, with many attendees approaching Arya afterward to discuss potential collaborations and initiatives. As Arya's influence grew, she found herself faced with an unexpected opportunity. A major streaming platform approached her about creating a documentary series exploring the impact of social media on society, with a focus on the experiences of young women. Initially hesitant, Arya eventually agreed, seeing it as a chance to reach an even wider audience with her message. The series, titled Beyond the Like, became a critical success, praised for its honest and nuanced approach to complex issues. During the filming of the final episode, Aria returned to Atlanta, the city where her journey had begun. As Aria walked the streets of Atlanta, memories flooded back. The clubs, the parties, the faces of the rapper she had once manipulated, it all felt like a lifetime ago. But instead of the rush of excitement she used to feel, Aria now experienced a mix of regret and gratitude for how far she'd come. The documentary crew followed her as she visited key locations from her past. Standing outside the nightclub where she first met Lil Blaze, Aria took a deep breath before addressing the camera. "This is where it all started," she said, her voice steady. "I thought I was so clever, so unstoppable, but I was just lost, desperate for validation in all the wrong places." As they continued filming, Aria received an unexpected message. Lil Blaze, the first rapper she had exposed, wanted to meet with her. After careful consideration and discussions with her production team, Aria agreed. The meeting was set up in a neutral location, a small, private conference room in a downtown hotel. As Aria waited, her heart raced. She had apologized to Lil Blaze years ago through a letter from prison, but they had never spoken face-to-face since that fateful night. When Lil Blaze walked in, Aria was struck by how much he had changed. Gone was the flashy, arrogant persona she remembered. In its place was a man who seemed older, wiser, and more grounded. "Aria," he said, nodding as he took a seat across from her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Aria replied, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a moment of tense silence before Lil Blaze spoke. "You know, for years I hated you. Well, you did. Nearly destroyed my career, my relationships, everything." Aria nodded, fighting back tears. "I know, and I'm so sorry." He held up a hand, cutting her off. "Let me finish. I hated you, but then I realized something. That scandal forced me to take a hard look at myself, at the way I was living my life. It wasn't pretty, but it was necessary." Aria listened, stunned, as Lil Blaze continued. "I got help, went to rehab, reconnected with my family. I started making music that actually meant something. In a weird way, you waking me up might have saved my life." As their conversation continued, both Aria and Lil Blaze found themselves opening up about their experiences over the past decade. They discussed the toxic aspects of fame, the pressure to maintain a certain image, and the toll it takes on personal relationships. By the end of their meeting, there was a sense of mutual understanding and, surprisingly, respect. As they said goodbye, Lil Blaze turned to Aria one last time. "I'm not saying I forgive you entirely," he said, "but I appreciate what you're doing now. Keep speaking the truth. People need to hear it." The meeting with Lil Blaze became a powerful centerpiece of Aria's documentary series. It sparked a wider conversation in the music industry about accountability, mental health, and the dark side of fame. As Beyond the Like aired, Aria found herself at the center of a new kind of attention. This time, however, it wasn't about scandal or exploitation. She was being hailed as a thought leader, someone brave enough to confront the issues that many in the industry preferred to ignore. Invitations poured in for interviews, panel discussions, and speaking engagements. Aria carefully chose which opportunities to accept, always focusing on those that allowed her to spread her message of digital responsibility and ethical content creation. One particularly impactful event was a youth summit in Los Angeles. Aria stood before an auditorium filled with teenagers and young adults, many of whom reminded her of her younger self, hungry for fame and validation. "I know what it's like to want attention so badly that you'll do anything to get it," Aria began. Let me tell you from experience, true fulfillment doesn't come from likes or followers. It comes from living authentically and contributing positively to the world around you." As she spoke, Aria could see her words resonating with the young audience. Many nodded in agreement, while others looked thoughtful, perhaps reconsidering their own online behavior. After her speech, a young woman approached Aria, tears in her eyes. "I've been doing something similar to what you did," she confessed. "I thought it was the only way to get noticed, but hearing your story, I want to change. How do I start?" This encounter solidified Aria's commitment to mentoring young people navigating the treacherous waters of social media and fame. She partnered with several nonprofit organizations to develop programs focused on digital literacy, online ethics, and building self-esteem outside of social media validation. As Aria's influence grew, she found herself facing a new set of challenges. The very platforms she once exploited for fame were now crucial tools for spreading her message of redemption and responsibility. She had to navigate this digital landscape carefully, always mindful of the power and potential pitfalls of social media. One day, while scrolling through her mentions on Twitter, Aria came across a troubling trend. A group of young influencers were praising her past actions, viewing her as some kind of anti-hero who had beaten the system. They were missing the point entirely, focusing on her notoriety rather than her message of change and accountability. Determined to address this misunderstanding head-on, Aria decided to host a live stream. As the viewer count climbed into the thousands, she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I've seen some of you talking about my past like it's something to admire or emulate. Let me be crystal clear, what I did was wrong. It hurt people, it damaged lives, and it nearly destroyed me in the process. There's no glory in exploitation, no honor in betraying trust." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "The real strength, the real power, comes from building others up, not tearing them down. It comes from creating content that adds value to the world, not content that simply shocks or scandalizes. That's the message I want you to take away from my story." The response was overwhelming. Comments flooded in, many from young people expressing gratitude for her honesty and pledging to reconsider their own online behavior. As Aria's work continued to gain traction, she received an unexpected email from a name she recognized immediately: Jason, her ex-boyfriend who had played a key role in her arrest years ago. With trepidation, Aria agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop. As she waited, memories of their last encounter in that abandoned warehouse flooded back. When Jason walked in, she was struck by how much older he looked, the years etched into his face. "Thank you for meeting me," Jason said as he sat down across from her. Aria nodded, waiting for him to continue. "I've been following your work," he said. "What you're doing now, it's important, and I want to help." Aria raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Help how?" Jason leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "I work in cybersecurity now. I've seen firsthand how vulnerable." As Jason outlined his ideas, Aria found herself becoming intrigued. Despite their complicated history, she could see the potential in collaborating. Their combined experiences, her understanding of the allure of online fame, and his technical expertise could create a powerful educational tool. "I'll think about it," Aria said as their meeting concluded. And she meant it. In the months that followed, Aria's life took on a new rhythm. Her days were filled with speaking engagements, mentoring sessions, and intense work on the digital safety program she was developing with Jason. It was challenging, often exhausting work, but for the first time in her life, Aria felt truly fulfilled. The program, which they named Safe Space, was piloted in several high schools across the country. It taught students not just about online privacy and security, but also about the psychological aspects of social media use, the importance of digital empathy, and strategies for building a healthy relationship with technology. As Aria stood in front of a classroom, watching students engage with the curriculum she had helped create, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She thought back to the young woman she had been, so desperate for fame and validation that she was willing to hurt others to achieve it. The contrast between that version of herself and who she had become was stark. As Safe Space gained traction, Aria began to see the tangible impact of her work. Schools reported a decrease in cyberbullying incidents, and students were more aware of their digital footprint. But it wasn't just the students who were changing. Parents and teachers were also becoming more educated about the digital landscape. One day, Aria received an email that brought tears to her eyes. It was from a teenager named Maya, who had been on the verge of leaking compromising photos of her ex-boyfriend. "I was so angry and hurt," Maya wrote. "I thought exposing him would make me feel better. But then I remembered what you said in your TED talk about the long-term consequences of our online actions. I deleted the photos instead. Thank you for helping me avoid making a huge mistake." Messages like these reinforced Aria's commitment to her work, reminding her that every person she reached could potentially prevent another cycle of hurt and regret. As Aria's influence grew, she found herself in a position to address the very industry that had once been the target of her schemes. She was invited to speak at a major music industry conference, facing a room full of executives, artists, and producers, some of whom had been directly affected by her past actions. Standing at the podium, Aria took a deep breath before beginning her speech. "I stand before you today not as an adversary, but as someone who has seen both sides of the coin. The culture of excess, objectification, and disregard for privacy that permeates parts of this industry created the perfect breeding ground for someone like me to exploit. But that doesn't excuse my actions. Instead, it highlights a systemic problem that we all have a responsibility to address." She went on to challenge the industry to do better to create a culture of respect, consent, and responsibility. To her surprise, her words were met with a standing ovation. Several major labels approached her afterward, eager to collaborate on initiatives to improve industry practices. As Aria's work continued to evolve, she received an unexpected invitation. Lil Blaze, the rapper whose video had started her infamous journey, was hosting a charity event focused on digital literacy and online safety. He wanted Aria to be the keynote speaker. The night of the event, Aria felt a mix of nerves and anticipation as she approached the venue. As she walked in, she locked eyes with Lil Blaze across the room. Time seemed to stand still for a moment before he made his way over to her. "Aria," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied, searching his face for signs of anger or resentment. Instead, she found a weary kind of understanding. "You know," Lil Blaze said, "what you did. It messed me up for a long time, but in a weird way it also woke me up, made me realize I needed to change how I was living my life." Aria nodded, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you," she said. "I was in a dark place, but that's no excuse." Lil Blaze held up a hand. "I know, and I've forgiven you. That's not why I asked you here. I asked you here because what you're doing now, it's important. And I want to help." As they continued to talk, Aria felt a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying begin to lift. This conversation, this moment of genuine connection and mutual understanding, felt like the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. As the years passed, Aria's work continued to evolve and expand. SafeSpace grew into a comprehensive digital literacy program adopted by schools nationwide. She authored a best-selling book, Writing Your Digital Story, which became a guide for those seeking to rebuild their lives after online mistakes. But perhaps the most significant change was within Aria herself. The guilt and shame that had once driven her to work tirelessly for redemption had transformed into a genuine passion for creating positive change. She had found purpose in helping others navigate the complex digital landscape she once exploited. On the 10th anniversary of her release from prison, Aria was preparing for a major interview with a prominent news network. The segment was meant to highlight her journey from infamy to respected advocate. As she sat in the green room, reviewing her talking points, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number, containing only a link. Against her better judgment, Aria clicked it. Her blood ran cold as she realized what she was seeing. It was one of her old videos, one she thought had been completely scrubbed from the internet years ago. Another message followed: the past never truly dies in the digital age. Meet me at the old warehouse in an hour or this goes live. Aria's mind raced. Who could be behind this? She had made amends with most of her victims, and her work had earned her a degree of forgiveness from the public. But clearly someone out there still harbored a grudge. With shaking hands, she texted her assistant to reschedule the interview, citing a family emergency. Then, against every instinct screaming at her to go to the police, she got in her car and drove to the warehouse. The warehouse loomed before her, a stark reminder of that fateful night years ago when her scheme had come crashing down. Aria took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever awaited her inside. As she pushed open the rusty door, she was met with an eerie silence. The vast space was empty save for a single chair in the center, illuminated by a harsh spotlight. On the chair sat a laptop, its screen glowing in the darkness. "Hello," Aria called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "I'm here, what do you want?" A distorted voice crackled through hidden speakers. "Sit down, Aria. It's time for your final lesson in digital consequences." Wearily, Aria approached the chair and sat down. The laptop screen flickered to life, displaying a mosaic of faces, all the rappers and celebrities she had exposed over the years. "You thought you could erase your past," the voice continued. "But the internet never forgets, and neither do we." Suddenly, the faces on the screen began to speak, one after another. But instead of the anger and accusations Aria expected, she heard something entirely different. "Aria, your actions hurt me deeply," one rapper said. "But they also forced me to confront my own behavior and make changes in my life." "The scandal you caused nearly ruined me," another added. "But it also led me to rehab and saved my life." One by one, they shared stories of how the upheaval caused by Aria's actions had ultimately led to positive changes in their lives and careers. Some had become advocates for privacy rights, others had started foundations to help young artists navigate the industry more safely. Aria sat in stunned silence as the testimonials continued. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the full scope of the impact she had had, both negative and, surprisingly, positive. As the last video faded, the distorted voice spoke again. You see, Arya, your story didn't end with your redemption. It sparked a chain reaction that's still unfolding. The warehouse lights suddenly blazed to life, revealing a group of people emerging from the shadows. Arya recognized them immediately. They were the very same celebrities from the videos, along with industry executives, digital rights activists, and even some of her former cellmates. Jason, her ex-boyfriend who had turned her in years ago, stepped forward. We've been watching your work, Arya. The changes you've made, the lives you've touched. We realized it was time to show you the bigger picture. Lil Blaze joined him. This isn't blackmail. It's an invitation. We're launching a global initiative to reshape how the entertainment industry approaches privacy, consent, and digital responsibility. And we want you to lead it. Arya stood up, her mind reeling. I don't understand. After everything I did. We've all made mistakes, one of the executives said. What matters is how we learn from them and what we do to make things right. You've proven that change is possible, Arya. Now it's time to take it to the next level. As Arya looked around at the faces of those she had once wronged, Arya stood in stunned silence, her eyes moving from face to face. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders, a mix of disbelief, hope, and the faintest glimmer of redemption. I don't know what to say, she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Darius, the rapper who had visited her in prison years ago, stepped forward. You don't have to say anything right now, Arya. We know this is a lot to process. But we've seen the work you've been doing since your release. The advocacy, the public speaking, the mentoring of at-risk youth. You walked the walk. Lil Blaze nodded in agreement. What you did was wrong, no doubt. But it was also a wake-up call for many of us. It forced the industry to confront some ugly truths about how we operate and how we treat people, especially women. As Arya listened, she felt a complex swirl of emotions. The guilt that had been her constant companion for years was still there, but it was now mingled with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. The initiative, she said, finding her voice. Tell me more about it. For the next hour, the group outlined their vision. It was ambitious, a multi-pronged approach to tackle issues of privacy, consent, and digital ethics in the entertainment industry. They wanted to create new standards for contracts, implement education programs for young artists, and lobby for stronger legal protections. As they spoke, Arya's mind raced with possibilities. She saw how her unique experience, both as the perpetrator and as someone who had worked to make amends, could bring a valuable perspective to the table. I want to help, she said finally. But I need to know why. Why now? Jason stepped forward, his expression serious. Because you're the missing piece, Arya. You've lived this from every angle. You know the allure of fame, the desperation it can breed. You know the pain of being exposed, the long road of redemption. And most importantly, you know how to connect with people who have made mistakes and show them a better path. As the meeting wound down, Arya found herself alone with Jason. The warehouse had emptied, leaving just the two of them in the cavernous space that had once symbolized her downfall. I have to ask, Arya said, turning to face him. Why did you really bring me here, after everything that happened between us? Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. I've carried the weight of turning you in for years, Arya. At the time I thought it was the right thing to do. And in many ways it was. But I also felt like I had failed you somehow. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Watching you rebuild your life, seeing the good you've done since then, it made me realize that people are capable of profound change. Including me. Arya nodded slowly, feeling the last vestiges of resentment towards Jason begin to fade. We've both come a long way, haven't we? We have, Jason agreed. And now we have a chance to take all those hard lessons and use them to make real lasting change in an industry that desperately needs it. As they walked out of the warehouse together, Arya felt a sense of coming full circle. The place that had once represented the end of her dreams now felt like the launching pad for something far greater than she had ever imagined. 6 months later, Arya stood on a stage in Los Angeles facing a sea of cameras and reporters. Behind her stood an unlikely alliance: music executives, artists, tech leaders, and privacy advocates. The launch of the Digital Integrity Initiative was about to begin. As Arya stepped up to the microphone, she took a deep breath. This was so far from where she had been just a few years ago, chasing fame at any cost. Now she was here to help reshape an entire industry. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady. "We're here today because the digital age has brought incredible opportunities, but also unprecedented challenges. The line between public and private life has blurred, and the consequences can be devastating." She paused, making eye contact with the audience. "I know this better than most. My actions caused pain and upheaval for many people. But from that pain we found a way forward. Today, we're launching an initiative that will address the root causes of these issues and create a safer, more ethical entertainment industry for everyone." As Arya continued her speech, outlining the initiative's goals and plans, she felt a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before. This wasn't about personal gain or fleeting fame, it was about making a real difference. Over the next 2 years, the Digital Integrity Initiative made significant strides. New industry standards were implemented, requiring clearer consent protocols for any intimate content and stricter penalties for those who violated privacy. Educational programs reached thousands of young artists, teaching them about digital rights and responsibilities. Arya became a sought-after speaker, sharing her story at colleges, industry events, and even TED Talks. Her unique perspective as someone who had been both the perpetrator and a catalyst for change resonated with audiences around the world. One day, as Arya was leading a speaking engagement, a young woman approached her. "Ms. Summers," the girl said hesitantly. "I just wanted to thank you. Your story. It stopped me from making a huge mistake. I was about to leak some private videos of my ex, but hearing you talk about the consequences and the pain it causes, it made me realize how wrong that would be." Arya felt a lump form in her throat. This was why she did what she did now. Every person she reached, every mistake she helped prevent, was a step towards redemption. 5 years after the launch of the initiative, Arya sat in her office, looking out over the Los Angeles skyline. She had just finished a video call with Lil Blaze and Darius, discussing the latest developments in their ongoing work. As she reflected on the journey that had brought her here, Arya couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns of life. She had gone from an ambitious young woman willing to do anything for fame, to a convicted criminal, to someone who was now actively shaping the future of digital ethics in entertainment. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a news alert about a major record label adopting the initiative's guidelines. Arya smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over her. There was still so much work to be done, but she was no longer driven by the desperate need for attention that had once consumed her. Instead, she found fulfillment in the knowledge that her experiences, both the mistakes and the growth, were helping to create a better, more responsible industry. 10 years after the warehouse confrontation that had changed everything, Arya stood on another stage. This time, she was accepting an award for her work in digital ethics and privacy advocacy. As she looked out at the audience, she saw faces both familiar and new. Jason was there, now a close friend and ally in their shared mission. Lil Blaze and Darius sat near the front, their careers having evolved to include mentorship and advocacy alongside their music. "When I started this journey," Arya began her acceptance speech, "I was motivated by all the wrong things: fame, fortune, the thrill of..." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "But this award isn't just about my personal journey. It's a testament to the power of redemption, of second chances, and of an industry coming together to address its shortcomings. We've made great strides, but our work is far from over." As applause filled the room, Arya felt a sense of closure. The viral vixen was long gone, replaced by a woman who had found her true calling in making the digital world a safer, more ethical place. Years later, a biopic about Arya's life was in production. As she sat with the screenwriter, going over the details of her story, she couldn't help but reflect on the long, winding road that had brought her here. "You know," the writer said, looking up from his notes, "your story is almost unbelievable. If it weren't all documented, people might think it was fiction." Arya smiled, a mix of sadness and pride in her eyes. "Sometimes I can hardly believe it myself. But that's the thing about life, it can take you to places you never imagined, both good and bad. The key is what you do with those experiences."